how did these terms relate basically, right, of nationalism, patriotism, and nationality? How do conservatives, understand those things? Because I think there's a little bit of a, uptick in, maybe patriotism, is healthier than nationalism or whatever. And so maybe, help us out, here because the landscape's confusing.
Very confusing. It's very confusing, and it's only gotten more confusing in the last 10 years. It's good to be a patriot. It's good to love your country. We are Christians, and we need to love our country. It's necessary to be a Christian. You have to love your country. You have to, because it's part of neighbor love, and it entails gratitude, and it entails loyalty. It entails faithfulness to your own people. So we love our family. We love our church, love for your family, love for the church, rooted in God, rooted in your love for God. We would
Yeah.
all say that these things are necessary for a Christian.
Hmm.
Love for country is different than love for family, love for church, but it's very similar because it's a love and a devotion and a faithfulness to your own, to
Hmm.
people. Patriotism is love of country, love of the people of your country. Americans are your people. If you're an American, Americans are your people.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean that we always like what Americans do or what Americans think or how Americans express themselves or what Americans believe. We're going to disagree with a lot of those things. But ultimately, Americans are our people. If we go to war with China tomorrow, we're going to have a different perspective tomorrow rather, than we did today on Americans.
Hmm.
We're going to see them as our people. If we're on a plane and it gets hijacked by a bunch of Iranians, we're going to have a newfound love and guardianship, sense of guardianship over our people against another group of people who are bent on destroying us. So sometimes the best way to define a concept is to consider it in contrast with its opposite. If I love America and prefer America, it doesn't mean that I want bad things for Mexico or
Hmm.
for Argentina.
Yeah.
Like I say this to people, and it always gets people's attention. I love my wife more than I love your wife.
Hmm.
And always get interesting responses to that. Like, you better, and that kind of stuff, which of course, all the kind of responses that I get from people are
Hmm.
totally appropriate. I love my children more than I love your children. But I want nothing but the best for your family. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's not a zero sum game. It's not a football game where one side wins and the other side loses.
Yeah.
But because when we put politics at the beginning of the way we formulate our worldview, then everything is a zero sum game. It's nothing but winners and,
Yeah.
but when you place God at the center of your worldview formulation, you don't have to do that. You don't have to see winners and losers in terms of how you think about others.
Hmm.
So if some of your listeners are on the foreign mission field, maybe there's somebody that aspires to go on the foreign mission field, or maybe there are people that are on the foreign mission field. What I'm saying about patriotism doesn't exclude them either.
Hmm.
They can love their country and still love the people that they are ministering to. In fact, sometimes, in some cases, a missionary will consider the people in his or her ministry to be his or her people, and they become something like a family, something like a
Hmm.
nation even
Yeah.
to them. And that's a good thing too. There's everything right with that. As Paul says, there's no law against love. And patriotism is a love for country. You want to have an ordered love. You don't want to love your country inordinately, love it more than God or love it
Hmm.
more than the church. But love for country is necessary. Now, nationalism, I think, is inordinate love for the country, and nationality, I think, is a better word when we think about distinguishing between patriotism and nationalism. Sometimes I hear people say, "I am a nationalist. I'm not a," they want to say, "I'm not a white nationalist," or "I'm not a
Hmm.
Christian. I'm a nationalist because I think a nation is necessary. A nation state is necessary.
Sure.
It's how God organized, peoples, and it's a part of the creation order and all that." I've heard lots of people say. I've heard Dr. Mueller say that. And I completely agree with that. But that doesn't mean that you're a nationalist.
Hmm.
It means that you recognize that nationality is a part of creation order. National identity, national character, national culture, national traditions, a land where a nation lives and buries its dead, has fought its battles, a land that it's tied to and considers its own, a place. Place is very important to
Mhm.
nationality. So I don't like the term nationalism. I don't really think that there are that many nationalists in America.
Mhm.
There are a lot of people in America that care about nationality
Mhm.
and how we define what American nationality is, and it changes with every generation. So my grandparents' generation, they thought about American nationality in a different way than I considered American nationality.
Mhm.
And I suspect that my children will think about it differently than I grew up and was raised to think about American nationality. American nationality, the conception that we have, changes with historical circumstances. So my grandparents grew up in the Depression and World War II, and that was what informed their imagination about what nationality was.
Mhm.
I grew up in the late Cold War and early 21st century, that shapes my imagination. And then my children are going to grow up in a whole different historical circumstance, and it will change. My grandparents, Georgians, born in the teens, 19 teens, I mean, they had a very particular view of their identity as Southerners and as Americans, very
Mhm.
different than the one I have and grew up with. And yet my children will have different. So nationality, I think, is a better term than nationalism. Nationality recognizes there's change in the way we think about who we are as Americans. And it also doesn't carry along with it the negative connotations that come alongside of inordinate love for country.
Yeah, I think that's really, really insightful and helpful there, just to see that there actually is a mandate to love your country if we're thinking about it biblically, what it looks like to, especially tying it to love of neighbor and those type of things, and just a general gratitude, as we've mentioned before, of just, time and place in which, God's chosen, where to have you be born in this
Yeah.
particular time frame to these particular parents in this country. And so part of it's just accepting that reality, accepting life as a gift, your country is a gift, whatever that country is. And most of our audience, they're Americans. We have some international listeners, but I think there's a certain sense that that's the maybe kind of a missing